There's a good one right now. A list is going around. Have you seen this of 28 places women now say they won't go on a first date? And I think this is a great place to start because it's a hot topic. Have you seen this list?
I haven't seen the list. What are the kinds of
So
things
let me
on the
read you
list?
some of them. I'm not going to read all of them. I'll read a bunch. Chili's, Chipotle, Olive Garden, the movies, your house, fast food chain, Buffalo Wild Wings, Wingstop, Red Lobster, buffet, IHOP, Denny's, the gym, church, Starbucks, coffee dates, ice cream dates, family functions, movie night, somewhere that requires a long drive, and bowling is about 20 of them. It's not the whole list, but
Oh man, that rules out the best dates of all. Like bowling is a great date to go on.
yeah, of the whole list.
It's so
That's
great.
funny you say that because of the whole list, that's the only one that I thought was a good date too. So
Yeah.
I
Well, bowling is a good date. I think a coffee date's a cool date. It gives you an exit plan in case things are really, really bad. I don't know. How do you feel about coffee dates?
So this is a great question. If you don't drink, or if you don't drink alcohol, then you have to have the coffee date, right? Because it's the replacement for like let's have a single drink. So
And I don't drink, so if I were dating, I would go either it's coffee or ice cream, but there aren't too many. A lot of people don't like ice cream because they think it makes them fat.
well, it's also like hard to look at like a manly man licking an ice cream cone. So there's a lot of things. Anyway,
Yeah, no, you don't want a cone. You got to order a
a
cup.
tough guy
Okay.
look, like extra sprinkles. So yeah, so most of these though, number one, I don't think a good first date is a restaurant overall. So I agree with these.
Not for dinner. Not for dinner. Maybe a snack.
Well, I think anything where you have to sit down and deal with waiters is high risk because you're bringing in a third person. Anywhere
Right.
where the waiter comes to the table and you're sitting across the table from each other, I don't like because it's like an interview. It's like other dates you've been on. Now, I think this list actually means that the women just want to be at more expensive restaurants. I think that's what they're hinting at.
That's what I hear too. That's exactly what I heard. Just get really expensive place. I could understand them not wanting to go to a guy's house or Denny's, but some of the other things. I mean, some people really like Olive Garden or Red Lobster. I'm not going to judge people. I mean, they may not want anything else. Although I think we both agree that dinner dates are not a good idea for a first date at all, or probably a second date for that matter.
I think.
How do you feel about people that aren't nice to waiters or waitresses? Because I know that creates a very strong feeling in me right
That's
away.
why that's why I would take someone to one of these places to see how they interact with other people. Because it would give you a
Right.
chance to see. That's the one benefit of a place like most of these.
Right.
To see, are they nice to waiters or waitresses? Are they nice to bartenders or bartenders? How do they act around the person who seats you? All that stuff is valuable to kind of get a sense of how they act when they're not on their best behavior. But I think that more importantly here is the more rules you create, the less likely you are to end up in a healthy relationship. So
Well, I do think that's true, but everything can be looked at as a series of tests, right? In a new relationship, whatever the type, I'm always testing the other person. You give somebody a small amount of, let's say, benefit of the doubt, and then you sort of let them interact and see how they do. Isn't it all like a series of tests? How do they talk to the waiter? How are they answering the questions? How do they look?
Exactly.
How do they respond to other
yeah,
people?
we're constantly measuring and assessing each other. Even my wife and I, we've been together 11 years. We're still doing that all the time. So my feeling is that this list kind of points out a bigger problem, which is that women want you to spend more than a certain amount of money on the first date. Like they've mixed a couple of issues here. I do agree that like come over my house is a lazy first date. I think come with me to church is a weird first date. The reason I don't like church or the movies is because you're sitting there watching something together, but you're not interacting. You're not really on a date. So there's a lot of problems with that on that level. But as far as this idea of I'm going to give you a list of places you're not allowed to take me on a first date, it already is. It's very unattractive. It's a really unattractive way to act. It's the sign that someone's very spoiled. It's like
It makes a statement. They failed a test already. In my mind, if they were to present such a list,
how many dates do you have to go on
She would
to be
be
tired of 28 restaurants?
failing my test.
You're tired of 28 different places to eat. That's a lot of dates.
Well, I think like corporate places like Red Lobster or Olive Garden, they're like big corporate franchise places. I could see why people wouldn't prefer that. But on the other hand, if they're interested in a relationship with somebody, it's not a big price to pay to go to a place that's not like their favorite. Who cares that much? This isn't about getting to know the other person.
Well, here's what's funny. If you take that exact same girl with the list, you say, okay, what restaurant do you want to go to? She's like, why don't you choose? Right? You go, right? You go, what do you feel like tonight?
Red Lobster.
And this is, to me, it's like what I look for is someone who's amenable. So the most valuable thing, and women need to hear this.
Yeah, agreeable.
Men look for peacefulness in their home over almost any other trait. If you can bring peace to the home, and you look at this every time there's a divorce, when they interview the men and the women on the exit interview, the guys always, it's some variation of she doesn't bring peace to my home, right? It's always confrontational or complaining or nagging. There's just different names for.
Well, really, so that way, if you're looking at a woman that had such a list, then she would already fail your first test. So that would make it very easy.
Yeah, no,
you can't be afraid of losing someone before you.
Any woman who has a list of, if she thinks she's looking for a man that's longer than 5 things, because it's interesting. It brings me to the next one, which I think you're really going to like, is I saw this one, which says, this woman wrote, this is misogynist. And a guy wrote, if a girl says I have to be over 6 feet, then I'll say she has to be under 70 kilos. And she goes, that's misogynist. And it's interesting because...
Is that true? Really?
Yeah, said that? This is another one I sent you.
Wow.
And I thought this was so funny because it's a direct relation, which is the woman is making a physical requirement. Men can't change their height. It's something you can't actually change. You have no control, but women go, hey, it's misogynist if you have a problem, if you have a physical desire, even though I can have a physical desire, right? And the men can't change it, but the women can. Women can, we have control over our weights. We can gain and lose weight. We can't gain and lose height. Yeah. So it's very interesting that this is considered, and this is a very common thing for women to say. This is a very common thing in modern women. This is why a lot of modern women are kind of struggling with relationships, because they'll say women are allowed to have standards, men are not.
It turns out there is 1 scent that a woman just can't get enough of on a man. 1 scent.
I would, if I smelled this on him, I would jump on him for sure.
I couldn't keep my hands off of him the whole night.
So what would you do if your boyfriend was wearing this cologne?
We'd have to go. I'd have to go meet him right now.
Scientists have found that the 1 scent works through the terminal nerve and may create a strong romantic response in women.
It's a sexy smell.
So I was just walking past this guy and OMG, I smelled the best thing ever.
You can't buy this 1 scent in any department store, and you can't find this 1 scent anywhere else. But I'm going to send you a full trial bottle of the 1 scent so you can try it out for yourself and see how much abundance you're getting in your life. One guy is using the 1 scent when doing his errands, like going to the grocery store, and now he's chatting up women and going home with more than just his groceries, if you know what I mean. John's wearing this 1 scent at work, and now the 2 cute young interns who have never noticed him before are both asking him out, all in the same week. Another guy is getting attractive younger women stopping him on the street, with one girl leaning in and inhaling his scent. He's already had multiple encounters with beautiful women. Mike tells me he's using this 1 scent when doing the deed. He says that women love it so much that one woman is keeping his shirt to smell during the day when she's away from him. These guys are just starting their incredible life of abundance, and I know you can too by using this 1 scent.
And that always lends in disaster, because if you want to date a man with no standards, you're not going to like how that movie ends. I'll tell you that right now. So women...
Yeah, well, the height thing, I think a lot of the surveys have shown women prefer a man who's over 6 feet. But the number of men that are over 6 feet is not that high, actually. So you're already ruling out a lot of people by saying that. And the reality is that a lot of times women will say things, they'll have this big list, right? But when they actually fall for somebody, the list is out the window. It doesn't necessarily matter. They may fall for someone who's short. This really doesn't matter. It's this imaginary list that they have that that they're willing to throw out for the right person.
Well, here's the other thing: the lists are always really bad. I've never seen a woman with a healthy list. Right? It's never. Here's what I've never seen on the list: good father. I've never seen on the list kind. I've never seen on the list doesn't hit me. doesn't hit the kids, doesn't cheat on me. Things that really matter aren't on the list, right? Doesn't get drunk and say horrible things to me. Never on the list. And it's like, when you think about a long-term relationship and you say to someone, and this is what I used to say to all my dating clients, I go, what do you really want? And they go, oh, I want to get a good girl's phone numbers. I say, okay, let's go out tonight. I'll get you 100 women's phone numbers. None of them will ever answer when you call. Is that a win? Mm-hmm. And they go, well, I go, then tell me what you actually want. And this is important because if all of you look for are really short-term physical characteristics, they come with a heavy price, right? Because we talk about, there's a small percentage of men that are over 6 feet tall. How about what percentage of those men are gay? What percentage of those men are already in relationships? What percentage of those men are over 60? What percentage of those men are in jail? What percentage of those men are in jail for hurting a woman? If you actually look at the statistics, right? Because there's a lot of other characteristics the fact that you don't look at those is so worrying. Right? If a woman says, hey, I don't care if a guy abuses me as long as he's over 6 feet tall, like that's really...
Well, she wouldn't say that. But she might act that way, right? She's not going to say, I'm okay with a guy hitting me and being,
why is it
horrible.
on your list?
As long as he's tall. She would never say that, right? No, I totally agree.
So that's what's the problem, is that our culture is looking at stupid things and missing...
Well, cultures look at stupid things, but women, if you really look at it carefully, you'll see that, and this is shown in a study, that women are like a guy, even if he's short, even if he's whatever, as long as other women like that guy. She finds that guy very attractive when other women find that man attractive. Isn't that interesting? It's nothing. The list goes out the window when other women like the guy. We've seen that all the time, right?
Listen, every woman I've ever met is in a relationship with someone who violates her list. And always that case. I remember this girl one time broke up. She goes, listen, I just really need some time to get to know myself. I'm going to go and be single for a while. A week later, she was living with another guy.
Yeah, it's a week later. It's just such nonsense. She believed herself when she told. No. But she just
then goes, yeah, I really spent that week getting to know myself. And asked her about it when I ran her week with the guy. It was like a huge drop from me.
Well, there was a study out of Oklahoma State where 90% of single women were interested in a guy that they believed was with somebody, but less than 60% were interested in him when they learned that he was single and wasn't with anybody. In other words, they're super attracted to the guy that they think is taken already. So it's psychological stuff like that is really in play here. All these lists, this is part of our conscious mind, and we write this list out, and we have this. But when we behave completely differently. We have no idea how different our behavior is from what we put on that list, for women and men, actually.
Yeah, very few guys are actually dating what's on their lists either. And here's the thing about men and women. Yeah. Men, as we get older, we start removing more and more things from the list. And
it has to fog a mirror as the one at the end.
It's like less and less. But you bring up something important, which is that there's such an effect. Women are, when it comes to dating, there's something they do, and it's kind of like a shortcut, which is like, if he's already dating someone else, then he's already approved. So they want to bypass the whole background check verification process. That's why they like a guy who's in a relationship. And have you noticed, even if I'm with just my kids, I get a lot more attention than if I'm by myself. Have you ever noticed that?
I noticed that when my kids were smaller.
When your kids are young, people look at you and go, he's a good father. I bet he'd be a good father for my kids. And it's so interesting because it's like feast or famine. It's like when we're single, we can't get anyone to pay attention to us. But then once we're in a relationship or have kids, everyone suddenly women will come pursue us and kind of be more active.
And if you don't have kids, you can get a dog, and you have somewhat the same kinds of factors.
Yeah, dog is a huge thing. Anything that shows you can take care of a creature and keep it alive. But what's really interesting is it's the same. You don't actually have to be in a relationship. If you just walk into a bar with a group of women, like what you can actually do is a shortcut is just you say, hey guys, how you doing? And walk in with them and and then people see you walk in with them and you get the same effect as if you know them. There's a huge advantage. Anytime I've gone out with a woman who's just with me, doesn't matter what she looks like, appearance is irrelevant. Other women go, he's friends with a woman, he's verified. It pushes up your attractiveness so much more than coming with a group of guys. Even though it feels like more confident to go roll out with your crew of guys, it's so much better to come with just one woman or a group of women, because it really pushes up your social status in the same way. Because, we just so struggle, to be honest. What men are really looking for is like youth, beauty, fertility, and what women are looking for is like strength, leadership, authority, and those elements, right? Like the elements of like that come with that, which is like power. So if we could kind of just
Well, the marriage traits that have attracted people when they're actually together: confidence, trustworthiness, integrity, compassion, emotional availability, respect, a sense of humor, and maturity. But I don't think those things are going to be on a woman's list. Those are just what actually ends up going for, hopefully.
the only every time you hear emotional availability is when someone's filing for divorce and says he wasn't emotionally available, right? You never hear it, because that's a good one to bring up, because emotional availability is a lie. What will happen is women will say, oh, I want you to be more emotionally available. And then you go, okay, I'm afraid of the dark. And she goes, I'm breaking up with you. It's like, it's one of the big tricks is that women will say they want a guy who's emotionally available, but it's not actually true.
I think they want someone who's present, who's not always in a different world, always on his computer, always on his phone with his buddies or whatever. I think they want somebody who's there sometimes with them.
But
present.
it's not as much as we think. We think, oh, when she says emotional availability, oh, I have to tell her every time I'm feeling an emotion. I have to tell her what I actually feel.
Well, that's
it never
ridiculous.
goes well.
She doesn't want to know. Big
Anytime
mistake.
you're emotionally honest as a man, you'll regret it in a relationship. It's even now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Don't be vulnerable. Don't act vulnerable. Not to your girlfriend
And that
or your
never
wife.
goes away.
It's true. It's a big mistake. Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. And really, those things though that women put on the list, forget them. All right. Well, let's go on to the next one. I have one here that I wanted to ask you about. This is kind of interesting. So, this girl, this guy's saying that his girlfriend was, with him, and he thought everything was cool, and they were like been together for quite a while now, like a year, right? And then he somehow is like sleeping, and she's in the other room, and she's talking to one of her friends. She thinks he's asleep, and she says, oh, that guy, he's like really not my type. My boyfriend, he's just not someone I would have gone with if I was really wanted to have fun. He's just not, really adventurous person that I really would have wanted. That's what he hears her say. So he's waking up. What does he do? All right. How does he handle this? And what do women really think about men who are maybe, let's assume, steady and reliable?
So you have to provide this balance between like expectation and surprise is what it really means, which is like they'll say things like spontaneous, but no woman actually wants to date a guy who's a spontaneous guy. And you can find out, this is the danger between women saying what they actually want, because you can do this and be actually spontaneous, and you can say, okay, here's what we're going to do. Every decision we make for the next 2 weeks, we're going to write down 6 options. I'm going to roll the dice. Whatever option rolls up, we do it. We're going to live 100% spontaneously. And you watch her eyes, okay? You offer her 100% spontaneousness, and her eyes will roll into the back of her head, because no one actually wants that. So you can find out immediately that that's a lie. It's always worth testing these things, because there are some women who absolutely want to live that way, but there's like 1 in every 10 million or every 100 million. They're so rare, because it's a super terrifying way to live, because you don't know what the dice are going to do, because I've done that before. And you will end up on some crazy adventures, but you shouldn't do it if you're married or have kids, because it's a good chance of you dying. So it's a very dangerous way to live, but it's a way to do it. And immediately test the spontaneity. You go, great, let's do it. You like you guys more spontaneous, let's roll out the dice. And every time you do that, you do it once, then she'll never ask you to be spontaneous again. But what they're actually saying is, what she wants is for you to be safe, but for under the surface to be a hint of danger, to be a hint of that. So you have to have some surprises, some things, and you want them to be built out. There are certain things that, like, I waited 10 years for my wife to find out, right? We've been together 11 years, I've never cooked for her. Like, maybe at year 20, you have to save some things, so there's still some surprises, because otherwise, exactly, men, we love stability, and women do love stability, but they want a little bit of spontaneity, and that's the balance. It's like 90-10. So what you have to do is mix in different things and be proactive about it. One of the things that I do, as you know, is I start a fight every 6 weeks, because if I don't, my wife will start a much bigger one. So I consider this a backfire, right? This is a strategy they use when fighting forest fires. You set a small fire so that there's a gap that the bigger fire can't jump over. This is one of my strategies, and I can tell you every time I don't start one of those small fights, my wife starts a much bigger fight with a bigger, more real issue. So I always start one early. We've been fighting over the girl I dated before my wife for 11 years. I'm not even 100% sure of the girl's name, but I bring it up about every 6 weeks. I know my wife gets really mad, and then it goes away. But if I don't bring it up, she'll bring up something bigger, like, hey, do you have a second family? And I'm so tired of that fight, because just the thought of one family is enough. A second, are you kidding me? But that's where you want to add in some spontaneity, and for every relationship, it's going to be different. But if she always knows what you're going to do, like if every Monday you have Chinese food, every Tuesday tacos, every Wednesday pizza, the problem with that, as men, as we get older, we get more predictable, whereas women still want spontaneous. It's like for like 20 years, my dad had the same lunch at the same time every single day because he liked that regularity. I'm the same way. I like to eat at the exact same time by a clock.
I think a lot of men, they first of all, they get really lazy when they get into a relationship. So they don't any longer decide on going to restaurants, which restaurant to go to, what do we do on Saturday night, what are we doing on Friday night. And they just basically let the woman just take over the entire social calendar. And they give up. So now the woman is in charge of their entire social calendar. And so right there, that's very predictable because she knows whatever she's planning, and you're not planning anything as the guy. You're just passive, letting her do it all. So that's kind of boring. And in this case, I really believe, like you're saying, you start an argument every 6 weeks. I try to get involved and make some kind of social plans every few weeks so that it's not all her. Hey, honey, guess what? Saturday night, we're going here. We're doing this. Let's do that. And that's, small thing, but it's appreciated because it's not all on her. But I think what's interesting about this is that these people, by the way, are in their 30s. And he is saying that she feels he's sexually boring and she's not really interested that much in a guy, even though he's, she's his girlfriend. She's really not thrilled with him. And specifically it mentions exploring her sexuality. What do you think she means that she's not able to explore her sexuality with this guy? Because I think it means something.
There's a couple of possibilities. It's hard with not a lot of context. It could just mean he never goes down on her, right? It could mean that, or it could mean
sure.
that there's also, one of the problems you have is when you've been with a lot of different people, there's a huge difference between one-night stand stuff and relationship stuff, right? There's stuff you'll do on a one-night. You're like, I'm never going to see this person again, so I'm gonna do all the weird stuff. Right. I'm going to do the dirty stuff. I'm going to go off menu. I'm going to do all that you would never do in a relationship. It's like he says in The Sopranos, and the psychiatrist, why don't you do that with your wife? He goes, hey, that's the mother of my children. I would never do that with my wife. That's why I have a mistress, right? He's really upset. And she suggests, I forget even what she suggests, but wasn't even something that crazy. He's like, hey, that's the mother of my children. I would never do that to her. That's why I have a mistress. You have a mistress for the dirty stuff and a wife for the stuff you do, even though the wife's like, no, I want to do stuff too. But that's what's important, is that it could be that. I think that we put this huge value now, whereas especially women who watch a lot of porn, a lot of these things are changing, and they just go, oh, you know what? The most important part of a relationship is the bedroom stuff, and it's a component.
It's not just that; it's novelty in the bedroom. That's the difference. It's novelty. People are no longer satisfied with just sex. Now they want to start reenacting what they've seen in porn. They want to go out, like you said, off menu. They want something new all the time. That's because they're very, very strongly in this dopamine-driven camp, in this path, where they're quickly bored, just like they're on their phones all the time, and you go to a link or a video, and it's 15 seconds, you go to another one, another one, another one. That's how their brain has been changed. We have a brain that can change its structure. It's called neuroplasticity. And our brains are now all set up for 15 seconds, 30 seconds, new. So this guy, he's boring because it's not new all the time.
I have an idea. It's the same idea I said before. So when you wanted to quit smoking in the 70s, they don't do this anymore. But you would go to a place to quit, and what they would do is have you just smoke cigarette after cigarette until you throw up, and they would keep shocking you. So it would make
Aversion therapy.
Yeah, no, like nightmare therapy, right? They would make you hate smoking because this is how my parents both quit. They went to the place. The place doesn't open anymore. They're like, yeah, because you can't. Everyone has a limit where if you smoke too many, it's like a parent, if they catch you with a cigarette at 14, they go, great, smoke the whole pack right now. And you never smoke again because you throw up so much because your body can't handle it, right? And it's, I don't know. I think maybe it's exposure there. It's something worse, right? It's like it makes you see the worst side of it. So it's like same thing. You go, hey, you want spontaneous? Let's do spontaneous. You go, okay. You want wild? Great. I'm getting you a saddle right now. Let's go off menu. And you go so far that she goes, you know what? Never mind. Let's go back to vanilla. Like maybe that's the strategy where you just go, you know what? I love your idea. We need to be a little bit more adventurous. I'm going to bring over 3 of my friends from college. We're going to saddle you up. And then she'll go, wait, you know what? Let's go back to the boring. Because sometimes we don't appreciate boring until we've had it.
Be careful what you wish for.
Give her what she's wishing for. And just go too far with your ideas. Go, great, I'm so glad you finally suggest this because I've got a bunch of ideas. And then what will happen is, because people think they want something and then they don't want it, right? And that's important. We think novelty is impossible to maintain. There's only so many things you can do. There's only so many outfits, so many positions.
Well,
so much
not only that, but it's also very unsatisfying and depressing. It really causes us to feel really bad. It's like when you go shopping and you order a lot of stuff you can't afford and you give them your credit card and all the stuff's on your credit card. You don't feel good. You feel worse afterwards. Novelty is like that. It's very, very disappointing. It creates this downer. That's what's addictive about this, because then we want to do it again. And so I think what I would do if I were this guy is I would tell her, you know what, tonight I just want to snuggle. I don't want to have sex. And that's what I would do for a while. And then she would wonder what's going on. And then, she would try to kind of win me over sexually. And it would kind of get her into the mode of wanting to please me as the man. And I think that's a good place for women to be quite often, actually. I think that they like to be in that place. And I think that's what I would do. That's how I would handle this exactly. Because women, I think, a lot of women, we all want to please each other. So there's a thing in her, she wants to please her man sexually. If he turns her down, basically, gets her in this mode of trying to win him over sexually, I think that's a really good place for her where she feels there's some risk of losing him altogether. That would be my strategy.
Yeah, if you're not equally invested or uninvested in a relationship, if there's an imbalance there where you really want to stay together and she could take it or leave it, you're going to lose her. And also,
yeah, you have to have her be pushing for you and trying to get you and win you. If not, it's over. She has to feel like you have options. You're going to go somewhere else. She has to be fighting really hard to keep you.
You just,
and I think that's true.
You have to. So one of the things that men do, and this is what it all boils down to, is we see relationships as a series of events, which is, I have a girlfriend, and so then you think your work is done until it's time to get married, and this is why we stopped taking her out on dates. I already did that. I don't have to dress up anymore. I already did that, right? All of the steps, we stop doing them because we don't see it as a continuous flow, and that's where this kind of comes from. So you have to pursue the continuation of the relationship. You have to actively do things to keep it going. And in all of these situations, what really is happening is that we switch to passive mode. And this happens to me too. I took actually my wife out to a dinner last week. She was so shocked.
Yeah.
Because we so rarely do.
Because you initiated and made plans, or because you went out to dinner? How long do you want to live? How long does any of us have to live? I spent 25 years figuring out a way that we can live decades longer than otherwise. I traveled the world, interviewed scientists, interviewed old people. There are people 100, 110, or 120 living happy, fulfilling lives, having romance in their life, having a wonderful life, doing active things. You're not hearing about those people. So why would you limit yourself? Why would you limit yourself to 70 or 80 years and being sick and ending up in a nursing home and all the dementia and all the issues that we all have? Why limit yourself? I personally believe that I am going to live to 120. And that's why I wrote the book, Healthy to 120. Based on my 25 years of research, I found one single thing that I think makes all the difference. Now, there's lots of other things that matter, but there's one thing that makes all the difference. This one thing. I found this one food that people living to 100, 110, or 120 eat all the time, and that all the so-called experts are not eating, and they'll tell you it's bad. It's the devil. This is the bad food. Look at people like Robert Atkins. Robert Atkins in his 70s. Now, people say, oh, he slipped on ice, Matt. Yeah, he slipped on ice, but he had a heart attack. He had hardening the arteries. He was obese. Look it up. Yoel Gibbons, young. Nathan Pritikin, young. All these people, they young because they're avoiding this one food. I think this one food is the key to my extending my life decades longer. If you want to do that, get my book. You can spend about $30 on Amazon to buy it, or you can get it from me and it's free. I'll send it to you. Just help me out with shipping if you can. So let me tell you some of what's in the book. Blood sugar. Blood sugar is super, super important. I discovered that these very, very old men have perfect blood sugar. Mine was high. So I started doing what they're doing. I adjusted a little bit, like a tweak in how I have breakfast now. And my blood sugar is like 80, 85, 90 when I wake up every day, which is really good. I put that on page 276. Then there's fitness and exercise. None of these men work out in a gym, but they're super fit. I wanted to be fit. So what I did is I looked at what they do to stay active, and I found like a 10-minute routine, an activity I do every day, and I'm really fit, and I don't have to worry about setting foot in the gym. That's on page 316. Prostate health is key to men. Without it, we're sunk. These men have no pee problems, and I was having those problems. So I looked at what they do and their diet and all these sort of things, and I came up with this, I'll just call it a tapping, 90-second tapping thing, keeping my prostate great, no more pee problems. Instead of getting up 3 times a night, I don't get up at all. My wife Jody gets to sleep, and we're much happier this way. Page 101. So let's take cholesterol. You know how a lot of guys worry so much about cholesterol? Well, these men virtually all have perfect cholesterol, and I think it's because their metabolic rate is high, and when your metabolic rate is high, you have good normal cholesterol. So I figured out a way to maintain my metabolic rate. My cholesterol numbers are outstanding. And the doctor said, you don't need to take anything. I don't know what you're doing, just keep doing it. I put that on page 162. So let's talk about weight. None of these men are fat, but none of them are on a diet either. They're eating the one food, remember. And I did a little bit of tweaking with the one food, and I was able to lose 38 pounds. I went from about 225 to 188. And I show you exactly what I did. No counting calories, no skipping meals, nothing like that. Super, super easy. I put that on page 250. Blood pressure is another thing. Now, blood pressure is something we don't think about. These long-lived men all have great blood pressure. I found that living at high altitude in the mountains, in the hills, helps blood pressure. But I came up with a very simple way, since I'm living on the flatlands, to have good blood pressure. Mine's 120/80 now, using an oxygen method that simulates altitude. It's real easy. It's got my blood pressure great and helped lots of other people. And I put that on page 139. So you can buy my book, Healthy 120, on Amazon for $29.95, or let me send it to you without charge. I'll just ask you if you can to help me out with the shipping. That would be super, super.
Both.
Which
We
was
so
the shocking
rarely,
part.
and she goes,
Okay.
okay, which kid? And she still made us
Okay.
bring one of the kids. I was like, oh, okay. Because we have 4 kids, so it's so rare that we have nothing scheduled, no event.
Yeah.
We go when we're very rare. And between my work and stuff like that, we're usually very scheduled. We have so many things going on. It's like that, and I don't eat at night, so I eat my last meal before 4 p.m. So I was actually eating outside my normal eating window, right? Because I'm on a time diet, so that's part of it as well, is that I'm just regimented. But it's all of these things kind of come together. But she really got excited and got dressed up and all of that stuff. But it's very easy, right? So I had to do a bunch of things very far outside what I normally do, right? I was outside my diet. It was a place I don't like to go to. It was more than I like to spend. But I just said, whatever. We got to, sometimes you got to do those things and let it go. Just because to me, I'm like, well, I don't like eating out. I like eating at home. We have a full-time chef in the house, which we're very lucky. So we can eat whatever we want. It always tastes good. We have like amazing things, but we have a pool at home, and sometimes she still wants to go swim in a pool at a hotel, right? Like, just because you have it in your house, like you have a TV, but still you like to go to the movie theater. So it's very easy as a man to get passive and fall into, because we like routines. We like predictability.
Yeah, exactly what I was saying
Yeah,
a few
right.
minutes ago. So that's good. But then at this point with this guy, he's in earlier in the relationship, and he really if he turns her down for sex, it's going to change their dynamic quite a bit at this point. And I think that's what I would do. I have a question for you here. This is came up a number of times. I've been getting this question fairly often over the years. Here's an example of this. The guy says, we've been dating a few months, and she's openly told me that she and her friend, her male friend, slept together in college. And in fact, she had lost her virginity with him. And the thing is, they're still friends. Like, they still keep in touch. So she's assured me that she's loyal. There's no attraction. It's not like that. And I don't know what to do. I don't know how to proceed. How do you read that?
Oh, you ever had someone look over their shoulders and say, no offense, but we always do next, offend you? If she starts to say, there's nothing going on, I promise you there's nothing going on, methinks she doth protest too much. So that's already a sign that there's something's not right in the state of Denmark. That's a warning sign to me, more than the other stuff. If she has to assure you, it's a weird thing to bring up, by the way. Oh, my friend from college, I gave him my virginity and we're still friends.
I would never bring, who brings that up? I know, who brings that up?
My wife does not.
The only thing...
She might know the age I lost my virginity. There's no way she knows the name of the person. There's just no way.
I think the reason is because they're friends still.
So it depends
the girl
on the nature of the friendship. So if you're hanging out with this guy once a week, it depends how much someone's in your life, right? If it's someone, we're still Facebook friends, like whatever. But if you're living in the same city and you're still friends with someone from college that you lost your virginity to, it's possible if you're in your 30s, whatever, it was more than 10 years ago. But it's a weakness in the relationship because it's so much easier to sleep with someone you've already slept with than to sleep with someone new.
The thing is, what she's doing is she has her friend, he's in the reserve, like we talk about the stove.
Yeah.
The boyfriend's in the front burner, but she's got this ex-boyfriend in the back burner for sure. And she's keeping that burner lit. She's keeping that pot on the stove. And I really don't believe, you're going to probably disagree with me, I don't believe that men and single women can be friends without something more developing. I think it's very difficult. And I would say that, do you agree? Do you think that's true? I mean, I found it's true.
I mean, I think that if she is unattractive enough, it's possible.
It's very unlikely.
That's the only scenario. Otherwise, like every woman I've ever been friends with. Oh no, if she's enough older. So yeah, because I've been around the block. But I'll tell you what. So when I was doing, I ended up sleeping with a whole bunch of people in the small circle of friends. I hooked up with every single woman, and one of the women in the group was like over 50. And one Saturday night, she did send me a late night text. I didn't go. I was like, you got to stop yourself somewhere, Jonathan. But that was the last person in the whole group, and we had a disparate age ranges. I ended up hooking with everyone. I had to really pull back from that group of friends once I'd hooked up with every single person. But yeah, there's no reason. Any man who's friends with a woman, it just means he hasn't slept with her yet, or he wants to sleep with her again. Women.
Yeah, again, you're right. There are exceptions. A business mentoring relationship could be an exception. No, for example,
not that one.
It's
no,
possible.
It's only if she's extremely old or extremely heavy. I think.
If it's a business-only relationship, I mean, it's a business relationship.
I think those are so dangerous because.
Yeah, they are dangerous. Yeah.
So yeah, you nothing might happen because of rules, but if the rules weren't there, they would. What women like to do is pretend that there's no attraction, so they can get free stuff. It's like a disconnect from reality. And men like to hide their attraction, wait for the right moment. But there are so many people, and they're both doing it. They're both equally guilty. It's like we're so afraid of just saying what we feel at the beginning of a relationship. So we end up in this like friend zone place. So anytime a girl's like ex is sniffing around, no reason to be. I don't trust, like when people are like, I'm friends with all of my exes. I don't trust people who say that.
No,
women. Whenever men, there's certain things.
I agree. I've seen it every time. It's never worked out well in the
Whenever
longer
people
run.
say
Never
stuff that at
has.
first sounds really romantic, like I once met this guy and girl, and they're like, "Yeah, we haven't been apart a single day since we first met. We spend every day together." And it made me go.
Yeah.
At first, like, "Wow, that's so romantic." Then you go, "Wait a minute, they don't trust each other." Right? It's like, or they're such low self-esteem that they can't be apart for a single day. A single day.
Yeah, I mean, part of a relationship, and I got this idea from, his name is Dr. Snarch, I think his name is. The idea of a relationship being a crucible, like there's chemistry that goes on. And the chemistry should make you each better people all around, right? Of course, the chemistry can involve you having children or not, but there's a growth personally that you will achieve, both of you. And part of that is differentiating yourself from the other person and being part of the greater world in a more fully dimensionalized, realized way, building more relationships in business or in other things. And I think that if you're just like together all the time, then you're not keeping that. You're keeping that differentiation, that development of each person from happening, which is really going to make each person very unattractive. Just like brother and sister, ultimately, it's not an attractive situation. If you're with someone all the time, it's less attractive actually, and you definitely want to have time apart, and you want to develop your own world. I don't think that you should have a world where you're talking to other women. She shouldn't have a world where she's talking to other potential romantic partners, but you each want to develop separately from the relationship. I think that's a key point to both maintain attraction and just as you want to go through life, you want to develop and self-realize. You can't do that if you're too bound up tightly in the relationship to the exclusion of the rest of the world.
So I once got this piece of advice from someone who, in most areas of their life, I did not admire them. But he was married, and he said, "Why would I want to marry someone who's just like me? That sounds so boring. I want to marry someone who I don't know what's going to happen every day. That's exciting." And that's true. So I think that's, we have this idea that some people have, that romantic version of marriage is like we merge into one person. We say that thing, two people becoming one, or two halves of the same soul.
It's ridiculous.
And it's like, but then the description is like, we wear the same clothes, we wear each other's clothes, we wear like those outfits that are his and hers outfits, like I'm with stupid and
yeah, I've seen those in Korea.
all that stuff, and you become one personality, and it's so boring. The thought of that, like, he likes the same movies I like, we like the same music, and it's like, well, you're just dating yourself then. That's a narcissist. It's like, I found someone who's exactly like me, and even looks like me, and wears the same clothes as me. If there's no difference, there's nothing interesting, right? There's no element of surprise. You're not going to learn anything new or grow, and that's kind of the danger of these things. Now, here's another one I thought was really interesting. This one came in. This was very aggressive and really. It says, if you're over 25 and you're dating someone who's 18, you're an effing loser. I love that. Because you know a man didn't post that.
Okay,
That's not
what? The truth is, men are attracted to younger women, just like women are attracted to older men. If you look at it from an evolutionary psychology perspective, older men have more resources, can provide better, have better standing and status in the world. Younger women have their fertility and their youth and their ability to bear healthy children. And that's why younger women are attracted to older men. And there's absolutely nothing wrong or weird or anything about someone who's 25 being attracted by an 18-year-old woman. It's completely normal. By the way, it's completely normal for a 6-year-old guy, this is where women hate me, to be attracted to a 25-year-old woman too. It's very, very normal. Now, they may end up getting together and getting married, and she may regret it because, she takes care of an old guy, but on the other hand, maybe she gets his money and that could be okay. The point is that it's very normal to be attracted, younger women at older guys.
I used to think that meeting girls was so hard. I would lay awake thinking, how am I going to get through life alone without someone to share it with? I feel like I'm missing out and running out of time. And now, suddenly, everything's changed. I'm watching this video saying there's one scent women really go crazy over.
When a guy smells good, it makes me want to snuggle up closer to him.
If I smelled this on him, I would jump on him for sure.
I couldn't keep my hands off of him the whole night.
And now that I'm using this one scent, I'm talking to women more. Women sometimes are approaching me. I'm going out more.
So I was just walking past this guy and OMG, I smelled the best thing ever.
Is on the top of the list, so, and this is killer.
This guy smells good. I don't even know what he looks like, but he smells good, and that gives me a reason to like want to talk to him.
I'm at the supermarket trying to decide which cereal I want, and this cute blonde starts talking to me. We exchange numbers, and I get that a lot. I'm not doing anything differently. I'm still dressing the same, driving the same car, telling the same dumb jokes. Imagine me, someone like me, dating 3 different girls. Can you believe it? And it's all because of this one scent that women go crazy for.
Yeah, you know it's not an 18-year-old woman that posted that. It's not an older guy that posted that. It's either a young guy or an older woman who posted that, who are like, oh, I'm losing my access to dating. Well, I'll tell you something right now. I told my wife this because every once in a while she's like, oh, what about this ex or that ex? I go, listen, every ex I have is now older than they were when I dated them. Gross. Why would I go back to that? I said, I don't know if we're ever going to get divorced. Hopefully not. But if we ever break up, I promise you the next woman I date will be 18 on our first date. That's the one thing I know for sure. Like,
so we have a relationship where my wife is actually older than me by a good deal. So, and she was older than me when we got married, surprisingly enough.
The whole time.
But what I feel that keeps relationship alive is a lot of amazing oxytocin-based sex. For a long time, quite often, like 3 or 4 times a week. And I think it's difficult if you're really into somebody and you're having sex all the time and you're physically really together, and we do have our own lives. She has a profession that has nothing to do with me. I have several businesses I run, so we're not together all the time. But when you have that type of sexual and relationship and physical relationship, I really can't imagine how you would, be tempted to stray or want to find somebody else or go back to an ex. I just can't really imagine that would be even possible. Maybe I'm naive.
Yeah, I think that I don't think most men cheat for the sex. I think most men cheat for the affirmation, to be honest with you. It's like, oh, someone who respects me, someone who admires me.
Yeah, I think people cheat because they're really, really not happy with their partner. And I think it's possible for anybody to cheat. I could cheat too, but I don't put myself in the position where I'm tempted to cheat.
So let's talk about it.
And I feel it's very important. It's like not buying cookies so you don't have them at home because when the TV at night, you're going to go grab the cookies, you're going to eat. You mean to eat 2, but you have the whole box. So the only way to avoid the cookies is not buy them and have them in the home in the first place. So I can count on one hand the number of lunches or dinners I've had alone with a single woman since I've been with my wife, because I'm very careful to avoid that temptation. I know I could fall for somebody else quite easily because I'm, just hormonal.
So I saw this interview really recently with Matthew Perry that was so good. Actor from Friends who's massive alcohol and drug problem for years and years. And he said, listen.
He's the one that died recently.
A couple of days ago. And he said, the first drink is the only one I have power over. He goes,
oh wow, that's a great statement.
He goes, after that, he goes, I lose control and I'm aware. He goes, after that, and then he said, I think the allergy or the addiction takes over. I'm not sure. I think he said allergy, which I don't fully understand, but I do think I don't remember that word, but I know the rest of it I agree with, which is that like, you can only, for someone, because we all know someone who's had a major problem, it's the first one, right? So he goes, I have so much infrastructure in my life to stop me from taking the first drink, because once I take the first drink, I know. And I know a lot of people like that, right? Who like, oh, I only drink when I smoke, or I only smoke when I drink, all these other things, and it's all connected. So what can happen is you have to set up this infrastructure to go, because once you are alone in a hotel room with an attractive woman in her underwear, that's not when you decide if you're going to cheat or not. You're too far down.
No, you can't even get in the path of temptation. That's what I think. I agree. It's a path. You didn't get to that hotel room by like a genie brought you there, right? You said, you said yes to one little thing, and then another, and another, and another. And some outside young woman who's sexy is always going to be grabbing your attention if you have a good libido and your testosterone is good. It's just impossible not to.
What men will do once we hit 35 plus is the same lie that women tell in their 20s when they're attractive. They go, oh, she doesn't see me that way, right? Like, she's not flirting with me. She just respects me, right? You'll say these other things, these lies to yourself, that if someone else tells you someone's flirting with you, they probably are. There's a 99% chance that person is, and when you deny it, you're creating a problem for yourself. You go, no, no, no. So you have to not put yourself in those situations. And it's interesting now because sometimes a married man will say, oh, I would never have a one-on-one dinner with another woman because I just don't want to be in a dinner. And they go, oh, that's so sexist. And it's like, well, everyone who says that has a broken marriage. So I don't really trust anyone.
It's ridiculous. Okay, of course, maybe it's sexist, but that's because sex is each gender is different.
Listen,
it's just, I don't want to be in the path of temptation. I will not even take the first step.
Listen, I also
because I
wouldn't have a one-on-one dinner with a drug deal with a bunch of free drugs. Like, it's the same thing. Like, when there's a temptation there, and that's the thing is that the delineation. It's hard to find that line if you don't start at the first drink. If you don't stop the first drink,
that's right.
If you go, okay, I'll have dinner with someone, I'll have lunch with them, but not dinner. I'll have dinner and drinks, but not this far, and you just end up. It's always a series of events that kind of seem unpredictable, right? Because it's like, oh, you're just hanging out, everyone at work, then everyone else goes home early, and then it's just the two of you having drinks, and you didn't even realize it. And then, oh, she's a little too tipsy, so you got to walk her back to her hotel room because you don't want something horrible to happen to her, right?
You know that story. One thing led to another, dear.
And that's how most things happen. It's a series of small events. It's not, hey, let's go and have drinks and sex tonight. That's not what people say, but it's that thing that builds to it. So it's so important to make the decisions earlier. And this is one of the things I learned, like when I was very young. Someone like, you don't make the decision if you're gonna smoke or not when someone offers you a cigarette. You make it before that moment. Because when there's peer pressure or when there's an offer, it's so hard to make the decision then because all these things are happening in your brain or in your downstairs. So you just have to make the decision earlier to not put yourself in those types of situations.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Let's see. We'll do one more quick one if you have the time, and then we'll finish our call. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. This is kind of interesting, actually. A friend of mine got drunk. There's a woman that is his friend. She told me on her bachelorette party she is settling for her fiancé, that he's boring, but he's a good person. She misses her spontaneous friends with benefits because he was fun. Now that she's in her 30s and she needs to settle down, she misses the hooking up randomly. Do you think that's a common feeling with women in this day and age who are settling down and getting married, that they're settling, that they're giving all that up?
Yeah, I think it's why marriage is such a bad decision for most men.
I spent 25 years researching why some men live to 110 or 120. Everyone thinks it's genetic. They think these people have special genes to live to 110 or 120, but I found that's not true. I found that all these men who are 100, 110, or 120, all of them are eating this one food. Grigoris Tas. He's drinking wine, he's having fun with friends, he walks 2 hilly miles a day in his native Greece. He's eating this one food. He's 110. Stanislav Kowalski. He starts jogging at the age of 104. He's eating this one food now. He's 110. He's running marathons. Arturo Licata from Italy. He loves pasta with ricotta cheese. He has a wonderful life. He eats this one food. He's going to be turning 112. Swami Svivananda. He sleeps on a board on a mat. He takes trains by himself. He is proven that he's 125, and he's eating this one food. Haj Musa from Turkey. He celebrates life every day. His wife's 110. They love each other so much. He and she eat this one food. He's said to be 130 years old. So why aren't we all eating this one food if it's so great? It's because the so-called experts tell us to avoid this one food. Remember Euell Gibbons, the guy that was on TV all those years ago? He was made famous by the cereal ads, right? Gibbons avoided this one food, and he passed at an age of 64. Nathan Pritikin, he was one of the greatest food gurus of all time. He avoided this one food, lived to age 69. And then there's Dr. Robert Atkins. He was the author of the all-time best-selling diet book. Passes, sadly, at the age of 72. So, who would you rather copy? Men like 110-year-old Grigoris Tahas, 125-year-old Swami Sivananda, 130-year-old Haji Musa, or these men who expired young despite their being the supposed experts? My name's Matt Cook. I'm an Amazon best-selling author, and recently I was interviewed by ABC News. When I discovered this one food, and all these men that I was studying, living to 100, 110, or 120, I spent years figuring it all out, researching things, traveling around the world, and discovering what it was about this one superfood that keeps men so healthy and living such a long life. I found along the way that these men do things completely differently than anyone else. So I'm eating this one food now. I'm following everything they say, and I am hoping that I live to 120, and I think that I will. So I have these notes, these discoveries, years and years and years of research. I'm talking to my wife, Jody. She says, why don't you put that into a book and share your notes? So I spent a long time putting them all into a book I call Healthy to 120. I had a small number of copies printed out, and I'm going to mail one to your house.
Go ahead, click on the link to claim your free copy.
All you have to do is just help me out with shipping. That's it. Let me just tell you the discoveries that I've made and how I've adapted this one food in a lot of different areas of health. Listen closely. Blood sugar. Blood sugar is super, super important. I discovered that these very, very old men have perfect blood sugar. Mine was high. So I started doing what they're doing. I adjusted a little bit, like a tweak in how I have breakfast now. And my blood sugar is like 80, 85, 90 when I wake up every day, which is really good. I put that on page 276. Then there's fitness and exercise. None of these men work out in a gym, but they're super fit. I wanted to be fit. So what I did is I looked at what they do to stay active, and I found like a 10-minute routine, an activity I do every day, and I'm really fit, and I don't have to worry about setting foot in the gym. That's on page 316. Prostate health is key to men. Without it, we're sunk. These men have no pee problems, and I was having those problems. So I looked at what they do and their diet and all these sort of things, and I came up with this, I'll just call it a tapping, 90-second tapping thing. Keeping my prostate great. No more pee problems. Instead of getting up 3 times a night, I don't get up at all. My wife Jody gets to sleep, and we're much happier this way. Page 101. So let's take cholesterol. You know how a lot of guys worry so much about cholesterol? Well, these men virtually all have perfect cholesterol, and I think it's because their metabolic rate is high, and when your metabolic rate is high, you have good, normal cholesterol. So I figured out a way to maintain my metabolic rate. My cholesterol numbers are outstanding. My doctor said, you don't need to take anything. I don't know what you're doing, just keep doing it. I put that on page 162. So let's talk about weight. None of these men are fat, but none of them are on a diet either. They're eating the one food, remember. And I did a little bit of tweaking with the one food, and I was able to lose 38 pounds. I went from about 225 to 188. And I show you exactly what I did. No counting calories, no skipping meals, nothing like that. Super, super easy. I put that on page 250. Blood pressure is another thing. Now, blood pressure is something we don't think about. These long-lived men all have great blood pressure. I found that living at high altitude in the mountains, in the hills, helps blood pressure. But I came up with a very simple way, since I'm living on the flatlands, to have good blood pressure. Mine's 120/80 now, using an oxygen method that simulates altitude. It's real easy. It's got my blood pressure great and helped lots of other people. And I put that on page 139. So you can buy my book, Healthy 120, on Amazon for $29.95, or let me send it to you without charge. I'll just ask you if you can to help me out with the shipping. That would be super, super. Go ahead, click on the link, claim your copy right now. I have a limited number printed. Thank you so much for listening, for staying with me. God bless you and your family. I hope He is shining His light and His love on you. And as I like to tell everyone I meet, I'll see you at 120.
Because what this woman really wants to do is stay with a guy for 2 years, file for divorce, because 4 out of 5 divorces are the woman files for it, get set up for life where she never has to work again, and then she could do all the hooking up she wants. She can live that single party girl lifestyle again until her looks burn out. Now, obviously, she's not gonna. That hookup guy from before would not be interested, right? He's like, no, I'm looking for a girl in her 20s, not a woman in her late 30s, right? But a lot of women do this. This is why there's such a high divorce rate, because women marry a guy because they want the stability, realize they want the party guy, and then they can have the best of both worlds because the way the divorce laws work. So this is why like those getting married in your 30s things are so high risk. Like, you know, I'm not a big proponent of marriage. I only got married for, you know, my kids, to be honest with you, for paperwork for the kids and to give them more legal protection. I would have never gotten married just for my wife. Like, it's
I don't really think that people need to get married if there's no kids either there or planned. There's really no point to it, in my opinion. But people do like the idea. Men like the idea also of getting married and the idea of the romantic notions
that's what it
and
is.
everything. But
a truth,
it's
marriages
kind of
have such a high failure rate, and even now, like what is that?
a raw deal.
Now you could even have a contract. You could have entire prenup contract that your lawyer and they're negotiating, and the judge goes, "Oh no, I'm tearing that up." Like, even judges have now decided, right, that even like prenups, even if you have a contract, they go, "Oh, this contract's invalid because we still want to."
You never know. You never know. So I would suggest this thing about boredom. I think it's the novelty-seeking situation again. And all of this is fixable. First of all, if you're going to date somebody, the best thing you can do is not get into bed with them so quickly. Now, some women will try not to have sex that quickly because she normally does. And she wants to impress you that she's, quote, not that kind of girl, and that, she's not, doesn't have a high body count. But really, as a man, you should take your time before you actually begin a sexual relationship. You should have a physical relationship, but not a sexual relationship. And that could go on for maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks. That's the key, because when you start then having a sexual relationship, there is a different hormonal pattern that kicks in that's related to oxytocin. And that creates a different feeling of connection that does not involve novelty at all. And you can change a relationship to that sometimes too. And that kind of relationship is much more satisfying and fulfilling. And you're talking about the high divorce rate, but the smaller number of people that are married for a long time and are really happy together. Do you know anybody like that? 40, 50 years, they're really happy together, it seems like. No? Not a single one? You're a microphone.
Still no. No, I don't.
Oh, now it's okay. Yeah. Well, I do, and I'm like that. That's what our relationship is like, almost 40 years. And that's how we do it. Novelty isn't going to keep you with anybody. And the fact that she's already talking about boring means that she is so plugged into the dopamine track that she's probably spending hours on social media every day, and especially the worst forms of social media like TikTok. She's probably also watching porn, and this is not going to work out. You have to move the relationship to the oxytocin track, where each of you become like incredibly, fascinating to each other because of hormones. And you stay in that track, and that's how you have a relationship that is wonderful, exciting, going on for decade after decade with zero novelty. You don't need novelty. That's a clue that you're pursuing the wrong programming.
Do you think you could actually change this woman and turn off her novelty-seeking behavior?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely you could. Now, that doesn't mean in all cases with all women in this situation they would change. But it's quite possible that many of them you would be able to change her so that she would no longer be bored expecting all this novelty. Yeah, I mean, when you say against her will, I don't mean like she'd have to cooperate and do the physical things that are required.
She wants to. Like what you're talking about, this thing only works if both of you want it, right? If she's like,
if you want it to work out, yes.
You know how hard it is to get someone to quit TikTok? Like, are you kidding me?
Well, I don't think you have to quit TikTok, but I think that when these behaviors kick in, the brain starts changing and TikTok loses its appeal. Like, I never go on TikTok. I never go on YouTube Shorts. I do pursue too much novelty behavior and looking at stories, but it's not as out of control as it is with a lot of people. And I think the sexual key is to that. There's a sexual key to it. And it's one of the things that we have in our books, and the new book that I'm writing right now, and it's using this hack to have the most amazing relationship with a woman as you can possibly imagine, and being together and just not being able to get enough of each other while you build a life of abundance financially and every other way. It's not all about the marriage. Like I said, it's, you're going off and you're slaying the dragons and you're achieving great success, because when you have, as a man, sexual abundance and you have this kind of relationship, you then are able to start building financial abundance. I think they go hand in hand in men. Just as with women, the wanting to build a family is their ultimate satisfaction. For man, it's the financial gains and the prosperity and abundance, and a good underlying sexual relationship built around the oxytocin path makes that quite possible. And there's no more interest in novelty all the time. With that, I am going to we're going to call it a day. I want to thank you so much for taking part here. If you like what you hear, please hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. It helps the YouTube algorithm. And hit the bell icon, because when you're bored, you're going to get an alert and you're going to want to listen or watch the next video that we do. You're not going to want to miss it. Thank you so much.